We are back. It is week, 16? Going on to 17?
15,
going on to
15
forever.
going to
We're almost done.
Yeah.
This is what? The penultimate show? Right? I think that's the correct word. Second to last. We'll make it easy. It's second to the last show of The Wire for this season. Enjoy. We've got here. Guess what? No buys again. On top of that, 2 Saturday games. And it's Christmas. So we get games on Christmas.
Yeah. That's a lot of fun. Does that I don't know if I asked you this maybe during Thanksgiving, but do you like it when there's like 3 or 4 games played before the Sunday slate, or do you hate it? I guess it depends on if you're winning or losing or feel like you've already lost or something. I kind of like it though. I don't know if it changes my strategy of how I set my lineup, but I kind of like having 3-4 players go before the Sunday day slate of games. I don't know if you feel the same.
I mean, I can go either way. It's really more of an issue when it comes to I can't think of it. Answering questions or delayed. Like, for example, this week, Chris Olave and Tyreek Hill were both named out very quickly on Sunday and blew up the entire chat for that day. And so stuff like that I don't love because I have fewer options to plug in or to try and find a streamer.
Yeah, and I also felt like I don't know about Olave, but it felt like Tyreek Hill was actually going to play, so it was a little bit of a surprise that he was out. Olave, didn't he practice or?
Yeah,
I don't know.
They were both doing limited. Well, I guess Hill didn't, but they said he was going to go test it out his ankle, and it was a no. Clearly, it didn't need him. It did not matter. Dolphins just had their way with them, so nobody cared. But yeah, it was rough for a lot of people. And again, we were nervous about it tonight with Jalen Hurts and Geno Smith both potentially not playing, and they both are. So if you had the gall or foresight to say, I'll roll with it either way or pick up their backups or whatever, congrats. They are playing. You got good juju there. But I did have one person switch out from them to Trevor Lawrence, and probably going to end up costing him if I had to guess this week.
Yeah. Or maybe I heard someone they had Jalen Hurts and they pivoted to Baker, so they won because of it. Amazing.
Yeah, could easily make it that way too. If that was an available option, that would have been a much better pivot. But it's definitely rough when you're at that point because there's just, again, we'll see it coming this week. There are 3 games on Christmas. So you'll have more flexibility-ish.
Yep.
But if there's injuries, you're still going to be kind of struggle busting it.
Yeah. This week was I feel like the theme of this week was the studs really a lot of stud players that you're counting on just disappointing. Breece Hall, Bijan, Hopkins. Those are just the first 3 that come to mind. And just man, it's tough to go out that way. I'm fine with going out if it's all right, I did my best. Obviously, you're starting those guys, but when they just don't perform, it's tough. It really is.
Yeah, definitely not ideal. So, all right. That's not what you came here to listen to, but we got through some nonsense ahead of it, per usual. We'll start like we always do with quarterbacks. And Mike brought it up. Baker Mayfield, 49.1% rostered. We continue to mention him. This week he gets the Jaguars. And week 15 blew up. He put up 29 fantasy points, had 4 touchdowns, and 381 passing yards. Pretty nice day against the Packers, at the Packers. And even the week before versus the Falcons at the Falcons, 20.06 fantasy points, 2 touchdowns on only 144 yards. I think the big thing that surprised me about Baker this week was actually Godwin and how much he used him and how effectively he used him because he had a massive game. Usually when that happens, it's more of a Evans kind of a situation, but Godwin was definitely the benefactor this week. And then another name that we continue to bring up, Gardner Minshew. Talk about another guy who he isn't super shiny. He isn't what you want, but he will get it done. Gets the Steelers in the Bengals the next 2 weeks, or he just played the Bengals and Steelers. So 14.1 fantasy points, 20.6 fantasy points, both over 200 yards, and one was actually a 3-touchdown game. So not surprising that 20.6 fantasy points is definitely the 3-touchdown game, but super impressive. Has another good matchup this week. And I'm excited for him. I think he continually is underrated. Also, might not have a running back. Taylor's supposed to be back, but Moss has injured his arm, I believe it was. And so he's out. And if he's out, that means that Minshew's going to be throwing even more.
Any worries if Michael Pittman's out with the potential concussion, or not too worried?
No, I just really think that makes it pivot to downs. We've kind of seen the success he can have, and I think he'll finally be up to full health. I don't like that he hasn't been seeing targets, but I think now that they're going to have to force feed him, and then they still have Alec Pierce, and they are using their tight ends a lot more, I saw as well. But I'm not too worried about it, but he's still not. I mean, he's meant you know, you're going to get 14 to 20 fantasy points. So I'm pretty comfortable with rolling him out there.
Yeah, and you got to trust Shane Steichen. You know, the guy knows how to coach and run an offense. So, like, I think a lot of it's on him and just putting the players in the best position possible. And, you know, we see it with guys like Shanahan and McVay. And McVay with Baker last year he couldn't do anything with Carolina, and he looks competent with McVay. Like, you know, there's a lot to be said for the coaching. So I think I kind of agree with. I'm not too worried about Pitt. I mean, I'd like Pittman there, obviously, but I don't think it's, you got to bench Gardner because of it. Derek Carr I have on this list. Under 25% rostered, best game of the year last year. Yesterday. 20 points, 20.3 points, 218 yards, 3 touchdowns. And he did this without Olave, which is pretty impressive. And we've seen Carr be good for a stretch this year. Week 5 to 9, he was a top 10 quarterback, averaged over 17 points. And then he got injured and kind of has been beat up a lot this year. And I feel like he wasn't really healthy the last few weeks. And I hope he's healthy. I mean, he had a good game, so hopefully that means he's getting healthier. And he gets the Bucks in Week 16, and they've been a really, really good matchup. So I like Derek Carr this year, especially I feel like guys like Baker. I know Minshew, it says 15.5%. It seems really low to me. Like, I guess maybe it's a name value thing. Like Derek Carr still has the name value and stuff like that. But I feel like if most people that listen to this show maybe play in a little bit more leagues that are on top of it. So, like, I feel like Baker, for one, is going to be rostered. But, yeah, definitely if he's out there, he's number one. And for deeper leagues, like Nick Mullins, man, he had some bad throws, and I don't know what he was doing on a couple of them, but he still put up over 19 points, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. And the Vikings read a note that they've I think there was 12 games with like Cousins and Dobbs played a full game, and 8 of those 12 games either one of them finished in the top 12 for quarterbacks. I think it was like 6 or 7 of them, or 5 of them was Cousins, and like 3 of them was Dobbs. So they're just really good. Again, it's one of those systems. Potentially, Kevin O'Connell knows what he's doing. You have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Ty Chandler now. So, and he gets the Lions in Week 16. So I don't think that's a terrible matchup. Again, if you play in sharper leagues, all 3 of these guys that we mentioned before could be taken. So Mullins is not terrible, I guess. It's tough. It's tough this year for quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of why we try and give you a wide range of people that are available that you could easily stream. I do like Mullins. I mean, at this point, I'm guessing that Flacco's probably picked up everywhere. That's another one who continues to sling it. Really got saved on his last drive this week, though. Let me tell you, getting that second touchdown in that additional 70 yards put him over the 300 mark, and gave him another touchdown. The 3 picks, not ideal. Not sure what happened with those, but yeah, that made me more nervous than I needed to be. But he should have been easily over 20 fantasy points had that he not thrown them picks. And
yeah,
so
for sure, yeah. He and the Browns, I think, are, since Flacco's taken over, so the last 3 weeks, second in the league in pass rate. Like they're just throwing the ball. I don't know what it is. Flacco goes in and teams just decide. I don't know if it's him or the team's like, all right, we're going to throw it 50 times now. So
he doesn't want to be hit. I mean, the dude's 38. He's older than I am, and he's just like out here playing football. And he's like, I'm not going to get hit. I'll hand it off to you. I'll pass it to the short guy. It does not matter. I'm not getting hit.
Yeah.
So
100%.
All right. Out of quarterback into running backs because I'm making a debut here for the first time.
I do want to note real quick before we steer off of QB, just because, we're dealing with the Monday Night Football stuff you had already kind of mentioned before there. But they said that Geno is good to go and is active for the game. But as of right now, Drew Lock is still warming up with the first team, taking all the reps, and Geno is in the locker room getting treatment.
Jeez.
So it's looking like Drew Lock is going to be the starter tonight for Seattle.
Man, that's a terrible. If you relied on Geno, like I
was so pumped for him. This was one of the guys I'm like, if he is playing, you are starting him. He's going to blow up in this game. It's a great matchup. I'm little less enthused with Lock.
Yeah, but you gotta go. I mean, if you picked up Lock, you gotta go Lock, right? Like you can't risk that. But either one, it could be like both of them playing. I don't know. That's tough.
Yeah, you could be in a very real situation where Drew Lock starts the game and then Geno comes in at some point, or vice versa. Like they trade off while he continues to nurse the injury. So
I'm gonna petition. I played in a fantasy baseball league one time where they did team pitching. You just pick the team and you get whatever pitching
go team
stats.
QB. Yeah,
team QB, man. Let's do it. This is the last 2 years have been brutal.
Yeah.
So.
But that's not always what you want either. I think you get the team QB, like you get the first pick of it, but if you don't want that backup QB, I'm fine just rolling away from it. Be like, for the points for that week, I'll give the team QB. Then I'm going to the waiver wire trying to find somebody.
Yeah, it's tough. That's terrible.
Yeah. But all right. That out of the way, moving to running back. Talked about a debut. It's going to be Israel Abanikanda. 0.2% rostered. This team, the Jets, completely been eliminated from playoff contention. It's not going to happen this year. And once the game got out of hand, he was the one who they brought in. Cook lost snaps. Hall was pretty much out. He had a rough go. It wasn't a great matchup. But this week, great matchup for running backs in the Commanders. So I'm really excited for him. I'm going to hope that he sees the majority of the work. He, like I said, played versus the Dolphins this past week, 3.9 fantasy points, not super sexy, but 4 carries, 8 yards, 2 catches, 11 yards. That's decent for really only playing the second half. Could be a little more impressive, but the Dolphins, also are a pretty good defense, as we've seen, I think, over the past 3 weeks. They are the number 1 defense in fantasy. So I felt like we said that we should pick up the Dolphins like 4 or 5 weeks ago, Mike. I don't remember.
We did. But, and it looked bad when they played the Titans. We're like, uh-oh, did we make a mistake? And then someone in our Discord is like, oh, should I pivot off of them? And I was like, you know what? Jets are still the Jets. Like, don't pivot off of them.
Yeah.
So.
And it worked out.
I did mention that. Yeah.
So, talking about Israel, then we'll move into the backup now. Chiefs have said Pacheco is coming back this week. However, you're going handcuff. If Pacheco does go out, it's probably going to be CEH, seeing the between the 20s work. And he's 32.9% rostered. And Jared McKinnon, not surprising, but is more highly rostered at 37%. Because he is the goal line back and the third down back. He's definitely the one who is seeing that passing work. However, in this particular matchup that they have upcoming, it will be a game that it would have been CEH again. I brought it up last week. I thought CEH was going to be the benefactor of them being able to run out the clock. He beat out. Granted, McKinnon threw one of the touchdowns to him, but it still ended up CH catching a really impressive catch in the back of the end zone, which I think might have boosted him a little bit more with Patrick Mahomes and his catching ability. So,
yeah, and I think McKinnon, if Pacheco comes back, I think you could still potentially flex McKinnon, especially in deeper leagues. His role's not really going to change too much, I don't think. And December is his month
again this year that happened last year.
I mean, that's his month, right? It's like crazy. It's like scoring touchdown in like every or so. I feel like since he missed a game, that he's going to probably miss at least 2 multiple games. We don't know, but I feel like Ty Chandler. We've mentioned it before. Like he's looked better, and this game kind of proved it. You gave him the bulk of the carries, and look at him. Like he did really well. Now he gets the Lions in Week 16, which is tough. So I don't expect a 20-point game, but if he can get to that 15 touch, he can give you, I don't know, 60, 70 total yards and a couple catches and with the potential of a touchdown, and more, of course. Like there's a floor there, I think, if they can get him 15. He was the only guy they used. So,
and Kevin O'Connell even came out today and said that he was going to have a pretty significant role moving forward, which might as well. I mean, he definitely looks like he has fresh legs. He looks very poised, had a good explosion. I think he's the first, without Madison there, it's the first time any of the running backs have hit over 100 rushing yards. So,
yeah. And the first rushing touchdown for a running back this year, I think for maybe not for the running back, but Alexander Madison hasn't had a rushing touchdown this year. And he almost had 2. He had a 30-yard run. He needed 31. Tackled out the 1, and then they called it some crazy pass play to end. It was just like, what are you doing? And then it was just like a prayer ball, and Addison caught it, and it was just like, man, like it could have been over 30 points for Chandler. So yeah, he looked good. Zamir White all the way back on Thursday night against the Chargers, so keep that in mind. But he was basically Josh Jacobs. He had 15 carries, 3 or 4 targets. 70% of the snaps, Amir Abdullah, who all year, even when Josh Jacobs was playing, has been playing 25, 30% of the snaps. So Zamir White, I don't know if there's any updates on Jacobs. He feels like one of those where, like, how motivated is he going to be to rush back and play? He's looking for a contract. He's playing on a 1-year contract. Like, he's going to want to risk coming in with a iffy knee and playing. So, yeah, they play the Chiefs in Week 16, which I don't know what to make to the Chiefs. Like in our mind, we still think of them, they're going to blow them out. But how many 17? But that game was still kind of like being back. So those 2 guys I like a lot. But we'll see about the starters. Definitely need to be rostered. What do you think about like Trey Sermon, Tyler Goodson? Is Jonathan Taylor coming back this week? Zach Moss going to be back? Like, who would you?
That's what they said. They think that Jonathan Taylor's supposed to be back. I'll wait to see, but of them, I'm definitely fine rolling out Sermon. I think he would take over that role for the most part.
Yeah. It's tough because if Taylor does come back, like, are they going to limit him as a thumb injury? Right? It wasn't like an ankle or a thigh or something. So it's like, do they really need to limit his touches, like from a thumb injury? I don't know. I wouldn't be confident starting him. I definitely think, because we're not going to know by tomorrow night or Wednesday morning, Trey Sermon should be rostered just as a what if, if you have the spot. And yeah, like Chase Brown, Tyjae Spears, one more week for these guys. Like if Mixon or Henry get hurt in Week 16, these guys could help you win a championship in Week 17. That's literally like, you're not starting them this week. And if those guys don't get hurt, you're obviously not going to start them Week 17. So it's kind of a one more week. Just hold on to a high-end handcuff. I think if you have room, it's not a bad play. You never know who's going to get hurt, and you could have a Ty Chandler week, from one of these guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it really is just dependent on the situation. And they're both that potential back with their lead running back. But if they were to go down, it could be a very big game for either of them. But all right. Move out of running back into wide receiver. No surprise. I'm still going to say Curtis Samuel is not rostered enough. 42.3%. Past 3 weeks has been awesome. Week 12 at the Cowboys, 19 fantasy points, 9 receptions, 100 yards. Week 13 versus Dolphins, 10.5 fantasy points, 4 receptions, 65 yards. And this past week at the Rams, 21.1 fantasy points as he went for 5 receptions, 41 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I'm very curious. They kind of said that they had limited Howell to kind of protect him in this last game. I'm not quite sure if I'm believing that or not, but in the off chance that is the case, I'm a little more nervous on Samuel. However, this week, McLaurin faces up against Sauce Gardner, and I feel like Samuel's going to be the beneficiary here because Gibson did not do what I expected him to. It really just was all the short area targets that you can get, and it didn't really go to Gibson as much as I was expecting it to. Then, deep leagues, the one you're looking for, again, Tavian Wicks, 3.2% rosters.
These Packers receivers, man, they're frustrating.
It's insane. But Watson should still be dealing with a hamstring injury. If he's back, Wicks is probably not who you're looking at, but he continues to have these weird moments where he just looks so good, and it's so frustrating. And this week was no different. He faced the Bucks, put up 15.7 fantasy points, and it went 6 of 7 for 97 yards. Like, it's insane. He had a game he should have really dominated was at the Giants. Oh no, 4 fantasy points. He went 2 for 6 for 20 yards. Week before that versus the Chiefs, 7.3 fantasy points, 3 or 4 for 43 yards. It's just like, what the heck is going on? In any case, what you're really looking at, you can get a Packers wide receiver right now. It's not a bad idea to go for it because they get the Panthers, Vikings, and Bears. Oh my.
Yeah.
So love all 3 of those. I think it's a good matchup rest of the way. And then no surprise, being kind of a home run pick, Josh Palmer, 19.7% rostered. Really was saved by a big play this past week with Easton Stick. Really kind of gave him a bright, shining moment, but came off of IR, 4 receptions, 113 yards, and touchdown, 21.3 fantasy points. This week against the Bills. Their secondary has stepped up, but if Allen's back, which we don't know, but either way, the target should still perform, should be widely available. 19.7 is just egregious. I don't know why it's not being picked up more, but all good.
Yeah. Yep. No, those are good options for sure. Noah Brown is at 40%. He had a good game, 22.2 points. I was hesitant. I think we mentioned to pick him up last week, but I think we were both hesitant. At least I was hesitant on starting him with Case Keenum. But he was kind of the only guy out there doing a whole lot. I mean, Schultz did okay, and Singletary on the ground. Yeah. But in terms of the pass catchers, it was Noah Brown, and obviously no Nico Collins helps that, but I'm fine with starting Noah Brown. Like to me, he's like a flex, a wide receiver 3 when Stroud's back, and even if Collins is there, because we've seen 2 receivers, on this Houston Tech. We've seen 3 receivers at once produce. So if Stroud's there, I'm fine, even with Nico Collins there. And if there's no Collins again, then Brown's going to be like a wide receiver 2, potentially with some upside, as you can see. So I like him a lot to plug in for sure. And hopefully Stroud is back. I forget who they play, the Texans in
this week. They play Cleveland.
Tough matchup for sure. So yeah, that does kind of bring it down a little bit, but I don't think the Browns are necessarily as shut down as maybe they were at the beginning of the year, kind of beat up. So for deeper leagues, there's not a whole lot of great options of receiver. Wandale, 6.3%, 20 targets since he's kind of come back to almost like a full-time role. And, he plays the Eagles week 16, and they give it the most points to receivers, or they're in the top 3 for sure. And specifically slot receivers do well against them. So I could see Wandale just giving you, a 6 for 50 or 60 against the Eagles in week 16. I wouldn't be surprised. And what do you think about Parker Washington? Because I think Zay Jones left with, a hamstring or knee or something. Obviously, Christian Kirk's out. Are we feeling Parker Washington is the next guy, or is it just going to be not enough to trust.
It's probably fine. If assuming he's going to be out, I still think the benefactor should be Ingram. I don't know what happened this past week, but they just couldn't seem to quite get on the same page. But Parker Washington could easily move into flex territory for sure. Not super thrilled for it, but could do worse.
Yeah. The whole Jags offense, just I don't know, man. It's just not like Ridley's getting 13 targets and catching 5 of them, and it's just there's something.
They're so close, man. It's like I think I heard that he's like the off target rate's like 19%, and he's seeing the third most red zone target or end zone targets.
Yeah,
like it right there. It's right there.
Yeah, I think I know Lawrence did get a concussion, so he could miss. But they play the Bucs this week. If Lawrence there, I think Ridley has a huge week.
Yeah.
This week, like I would definitely be starting him. But yeah, I also think that touchdown seemed like it could have easily been called a touchdown. Like I understand they ruled it incomplete, but I don't know. Felt like it should have been, and maybe that was. It just feels like the whole Jags like offense is just doesn't click or whatever, So not what we expected at least, but yeah, tough for receivers this week for sure on the waiver wire. No kind of a definite. Oh, you got to pick this guy up, except for maybe Noah Brown, and I like Curtis Samuel too.
Yeah, both are really good options. I really like Brown. I can continue to toot the horn for him. Said his name a lot on Sunday and Thursday. He's one of the players that is really stepping into a role and playing well. Not even depending on quarterback. It's just whoever's there who's throwing it. He's seeing good targets. So hard to get away from somebody who's seeing double-digit targets for sure. So, all right, going to important Ance's favorite position, the tight end.
Real quick.
Right.
It's about a tight end, but who do you think's tight end 1 next year? Do you think it's still Kelsey or is it Andrews, Hawkinson? Is it Laporta? Is it McBride? Like McBride, if you look at his numbers since Zach Ertz got hurt, McBride's on pace for like 1,100 yards and like 100 plus catches. Yeah. It's insane. Do you think you still lean like one of the, Hawkinson, Andrews, Kelsey, one of those guys, or?
I mean,
the up and comers.
I think it's muddy waters.
Yeah.
I think we don't have we had the last season and the year before that, it was a clear-cut top 3, right? 2 years ago, it was all I want is Kelsey, Kittle, and Darren Waller.
Andrew.
Yep.
And then last year was when Andrews really got into that conversation. And he was immediately in the top 3. Andrews had a good year 2 years ago, but going into that season, remember, he was coming off of the bad year, and everybody was out on him. But last year, we had Andrews and Kelsey at the top, and then you had like Waller, Kittle, and Hawkinson in the next tier behind them. And this year, it was Travis Kelsey and then kind of everybody else. You didn't really know what to believe. There were people high on Pitts. There were people still high on Kittle. There were people still all in on Andrews. And I think at this point, Kelsey is getting to the age where he's going to fall out of that first round territory. And he has not been as dominant this season as he has been recently. So I would say maybe he ends up in like the 3rd round-ish territory. But I think it's just going to be a mix of him, Andrews, Laporta, Hawkinson, and it's just going to be take your pick of who you want in that top tier. But it's going to be a lot cloudier than it ever has been. Yeah,
it's funny because Kelsey's still points per game #1 tight end. Like I know he's definitely not as dominant. Yeah, barely.
McBride is creeping up on him.
Yeah, that's true. And Laporta is like right there. But we talk about like Kelsey down the air, and it's like. It's just because it's not 6. What was it last year? 5.5 points, 5 points better than #2, and it's going to be 1 at best this year. So definitely not worth the investment. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's the dominance like you're talking about. Like like Hawkinson right now is at 15.1, and that's only through week 14 because I don't have the week 15 numbers factored in yet. But through week 14, Kelsey's at 16.5, but then you got Hawkinson at 15.1, Laporte at 13.6, Andrews at 13.5, Kittle at 13.1, Evan Ingram at 13.1, and he was a guy going undrafted in ADP. And Kelsey's numbers over the last 2 months since week 8, he's had 11.8, 4.4, the bye week, 15-4, 15-1, 12-1, 14-3. It's been right around his average. It's been consistent, but it hasn't been dominant. It hasn't been what you're really looking for from Kelsey.
Yeah, and Laporta is definitely going to be with his 3 touchdowns. He's probably in second now, or close to maybe. Maybe not quite in second place.
Ooh,
that's a spicy.
That's a spicy take.
How long is he in Houston?
I think it was just a 1-year contract. So I don't even know if he's going to be back because I think he did like a prove it kind of deal because I thought Dallas offered him something. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, 1 year, $6 million, $6.2 million. He signed with Houston, so he might. If he's linked with Stroud, I understand the want or the go towards. Look what Stroud and Schultz were doing there for a while, but yeah, it's gonna be tough to trust him as tight end 3.
Yeah, and you got Kincaid in there too. Like if they don't bring back Knox, if they find a way to move him in the offseason. We saw what he did when Knox was out. It was fairly consistent.
And what if
James Cook seems to be what might end up being Kincaid's bigger downfall right now. How they're using him and how dominant they are when he's running the ball, which shocking.
Right. If only we were saying that in the preseason.
Jeez. I mean, what if the Falcons situation changes and they get a quarterback in there and everyone's going to hype up?
They get a real head coach. Yeah, that'd be great.
Or Pitts gets traded.
What an idea that would be.
Yeah. Or they trade Pitts somewhere because they don't want to, he's already going into his 4th year, right? So they don't want to bring him back or something, or I don't know. Yeah. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, because they got to make, he was a 1st-round pick, so they got to make the decision on the option this summer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure that's how it works.
Because it's the summer before your 4th year. You have to option the 5th year. Yep. So
they trade him to the Chargers, and then he's tight end 1.
Well, I think this is the 4th year for London, right? But this is only the 3rd year for Pitts. Is that right?
I think Pitts was first. Pitts was the 2020 year, I think. No.
I can fact check us real quick.
Yeah. I think London was the year after. Because Pitts had that 1,000-yard rookie year.
He's not a UFA next year. So next year
he was a 1st-round pick in 2021.
Okay, so 2024.
So this is year 3.
Okay. Yeah. And London was 2022.
Yeah, so he'll be up for it next year.
And all those top 10 picks had 20% of the touches yesterday against the Panthers, and they lost. Amazing.
Shocker.
You only give your 3 top 10 picks on offense 20% of your touches. What are you doing?
Right. But they got Cordarrelle Patterson going, so that's good.
Yeah.
About time.
Smith,
all right.
Leading receiver. That's crazy.
All right. Bring it back around to your free agent tight ends that you can easily pick up mostly everywhere. No surprise, again, being the homer that I am. Gerald Everett, 26.2% rostered. Consistently is giving you points. That's all I'm going to say. Week 13 at Patriots, he gave you 8.4. Week 14 versus Broncos, 8.9. This past week versus Raiders, 9.1. It's not pretty, but it's good enough. So if you're looking for somebody that is good enough, Everett is your man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, 8 targets in that game, and could be another game where they're just trailing and Easton Stick is a top 7 quarterback because of it, it's
oh shoot. I thought Everett was at the beginning was the only one really fighting. I mean, he had that stiff arm that just like blew that guy's face right off as he got an extra 3 yards after hitting him. I was like, golly, that's impressive. Actually, it looks like he has a want and a need. Probably realized he's going into free agency next year and needs to bulk up another contract.
Yeah. No, it's fair. Hunter Henry.
Gonna get bit, huh? You're gonna play with the snake?
I guess. They've looked better on offense the last 2 weeks, I guess. I mean, they didn't look great yesterday, but they got 17 points. And, Zappy targets him in the red zone, and he's getting more than just that. And I don't know. I think there's something to it. The Broncos give up, I think they're in the top 5 most points given up to tight ends. So there's just not a whole lot else on that offense. I mean, I don't know if Juju's going to be back. I know he missed this last week, but also I thought I remember hearing that he maybe was injured or something. So that could be.
Yeah. He's been dealing with injuries the past few weeks.
Yeah. So just keep an eye on that. But yeah, it feels like one of those you're going to get bit. But again, if Hunter Henry, at this point, if I'm starting Hunter Henry, the tight end doesn't really mean much to me on my team. And if he gives me 2 touchdowns, it's like, all right, I'm winning this week and for sure, And Tucker Kraft, double-digit points back-to-back weeks. Just one of those, like, can you give you 4, 5 catches, 50, 60 yards? You're happy, kind of like an Everett, but type of play. So, and I think, obviously a little bit better quarterback. If Christian Watson's back, it does muddy the waters a bit, but I don't know if he's coming back this week.
Yeah, and I mean, even then, I really like Tucker Kraft. He's been one of the ones that I like to say you can pick up and stream. Mostly because, again, we continue to touch on it. Great schedule rest of the season for the Packers when it comes to the passing game. And honestly, with Luke Musgrave out, Tucker Kraft has really slid into that role pretty well and done exactly what he needs to as a tight end to kind of prove that he'll be there for Love. So definitely like that pick for sure.
Yeah. Yes, and hopefully you picked up McBride 7 weeks ago when we said 2.
Yeah, or Laporta like week 2 or 3.
Yeah, definitely.
But all right, out of tight end, in a defense, no surprise. Back to the well I go. Colts, 37.2% rostered. Continues to put up good numbers. I was nervous this week. Was nervous last week. Still haven't let me down. We're doing all right. Week 13 at Titans, 17 fantasy points. Week 14 at the Bengals, 6 fantasy points. This past week versus the Steelers, 15 fantasy points. Oh yeah, they get the Falcons and Raiders the next 2 weeks. So if you're rolling the Colts, I'm all good with it. I think that's a pretty safe use of that defense. Pretty impressive what they continue to do.
Yeah. They have to be like the worst real defense, but it's actually they're
great fantasy.
Yeah, before week 15, they were defense, the third best defense. And what did you say? They put up 15 points against the Steelers. So they're going to be potentially right. Well, they're going to be still probably third, but they're going to increase their average a little bit. But you look at it and they give up, I think, the 6th most points per game. Yards per game are kind of like middle of the pack-ish, but still they're not like a very good defense. They're just getting sacks and special teams play, I guess. Pretty amazing.
They're averaging 9.1 fantasy points a week. They put up 118 this year.
Jeez, that's going up after 15. So
yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, if the Bills are out there, please grab them. I mean, you saw what the Raiders did to the Chargers, and maybe people dropped the Bills because they played the Cowboys. So
rude. On top of that, we lost our center for the year.
Oh yeah.
So enjoy that. We Chargers will also have a new center starting on for Sunday. So yeah,
in Buffalo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. It's at the Rams, or it's in Illinois.
Okay. Okay. Well, either way,
sure.
If someone dropped them because they were playing the Cowboys, you just saw what they did to the Cowboys. Like, pick the Bills up. So I have a few here. The Bengals, no particular order, but the Bengals, they've kind of been a solid defense all year. I think they're top 13 or something. But they get the Steelers and Mason Rudolph this week. I like that. Packers, I think we've mentioned a couple of times because of their playoff schedule, but they get the Panthers in week 17. So, again, really good matchup there. The Jets might have been dropped because of the Miami matchup, but they get the Commanders in Week 16. The Commanders give up the third most points to defenses, and that was going to be true again until Jacoby Brissett came in, and
immediately marched down the field with Terry McLaurin and just blew up any hope anybody had.
Yeah,
went 6 for 6 and 114 yards.
Yeah, go figure. Throwing it to McLaurin's a good thing, So, Bears surprisingly have a good defense. Since Week 5, they're the 5th best defense in fantasy football. 7 points in 5 straight games, and that includes 3 straight games of 14 or more points. And they get the Cardinals in Week 16, which I'm not too afraid of. Is
it Sweat? The addition of Sweat has really boosted that 7 points to 14 points. I think he might be a difference maker.
Yep. Yeah, you get the Bears and then Cardinals and Falcons for the Bears. So I like them. Broncos get the Patriots in Week 16, and they've actually been a much improved defense as well. So there's actually a lot of, there's been a lot of good options all year because it's been a bunch of backup quarterbacks. So yeah, target maybe bad weather games, backup quarterbacks. You should be able to find something.
Yeah, definitely pretty easy there. I feel like there's a lot of decent. Again, at this point, you're really the people who are fighting for a playoff spot. They're going to be able to do what they've been doing all year and not have to worry about it. It's really messy near the top. Everybody's fighting for a spot. They're all 8-3, 5, 6,
8-6. Yeah, they're all like within a game.
Right
or
there,
something.
9-5. It's ugly. It's a bunch of mess. It's a big mess right there.
Yeah, I would just quickly looked. So the 10th best defense this year is averaging 8.5 points, and last year it was averaging under 7. So the defenses have been a lot better this year. Obviously with the poor quarterback play. So,
well, like we can say, 14 are backups. I think that might help.
And again, you're in the playoffs, you're playing other good teams. The Raiders defense last week would have been the difference maker in your matchup. Don't undersell how valuable the defense could be, because we've obviously seen them be really valuable.
Yeah, it's been pretty impressive. All right, we're going to get out of here. Let you watch your Monday Night Football as the Eagles take on the Seahawks, who I'm guessing it looks like Locke is the starter. So good luck.
That's the way it looks right now, but they will not make an official announcement. So
of course not.
Strategy.
Yeah. Gotta love Pete Carroll.
Yeah. Jeez.
But in any case, it's all good. We'll get out of here. Hope you all have a good week. Come back Thursday. We'll be back to answer your start-sit questions. And as always, remember to keep up the nonsense.